So for all those old school fans out there, this is iconic as it gets. Dale and Ricky, head to head at North Wilkesboro in 1989. What many fans don't realize is what truly was at stake in this race. The championship that year was won by a narrow 12 points, with Rusty Wallace defeating Dale Earnhardt in a bid for his then third title. What is never mentioned is the very next week at Rockingham when Rusty Wallace solidified his championship intentions by rattling Dale Earnhardt's cage. At the start of the race, Rusty Wallace led by 35 points. After the race, Rusty led by 37 points. The difference from first and second while leading a lap under the 1975 point system invented by Bob Latford had Dale Earnhardt losing from 31 to 36 points respectively. What this did is effectively make this made-for-TV NASCAR highlight reel a moot point in the championship race. Just a lost opportunity for Dale Earnhardt and a sigh of relief for Rusty Wallace.
Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd spin on the last lap, and Rusty Wallace is going to finish ahead of Dale Earnhardt. Wow, short track racing.
It's easy to hear the broadcast team of Bob Jenkins and Ned Jarrett get extremely excited about the final laps events at North Wilkesboro. They knew this had big-time championship implications for that season. What happens at Rockingham is even more exciting and unexpected. Blast from the past here, we have an old school style restart. What's happening here is we have two lines. They are both not on the lead lap. The inside line cars are a lap down. The outside are on the lead lap, except for Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace. Mark Martin, the race leader, is behind them. What happens is these cars stay out under the yellow flag. When Mark Martin pits, they stay out, so they get trapped behind him and the pace car. This was, before 2003, it was called the tail and lead lap.
Mark Martin is your leader. Dale Earnhardt is almost 2 laps down, out in front of Rusty Wallace there. He was over a half a lap down when he made his pit stop. He made a long green flag pit stop, so he's almost 2 laps down. Rusty Wallace is in the lead lap, but just barely in the lead lap as a result of his green flag pit stop. Caution coming out just as he was going out.
This is pure speculation on my end, but it's at this point after the restart with 82 laps left in the race, which, by the way, we used to run 500 miles at Rockingham. That is a crazy long day. In any event, I believe the race was slipping out of Dale Earnhardt's hand at this moment. He was running 7th place, nearly 2 laps down, while his competitor in the championship standings, Rusty Wallace, was running 3rd place, who had also led the most laps with an extra 10 bonus points, 5 more than Dale Earnhardt had gotten. With time running out at this event at Rockingham and in the season, let's hear from Dale Earnhardt himself what his chances were at the championship in 1989.
Well, we can, and we had it made up last week till the last lap. So, we're just working hard to get the car as consistent as we can, try to win the race. We can win that race, and Rusty finished 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. We beat him in the points. We gained some points every race. We'll win it.
Well, right now, he doesn't stand to gain any points on his 2 competitors for the Winston Cup, as he is 7th. Rusty Wallace is 4th, and Mark Martin is the leader of the race.
After the disappointment at North Wilkesboro, Dale needs to do something. With Rusty Wallace closing in from behind, with Dale being on the verge of being 2 laps down, what happens next? How will he save his championship hopes?
Gotten together. Earnhardt spins around. There they touch again. And here comes Sterling Marlin in and rams into Earnhardt. That's going to knock Earnhardt.
May take
him out of the race.
May take him out of the race, indeed. He was really nailed by Sterling Marlin. Rusty was able to get by with a little bit of damage. That remains to be seen. But boy, the rear end of the GM Goodwrench Chevrolet is torn badly.
It is my speculation, with Dale being on the back foot and Rusty Wallace having a good day, Dale tried to intimidate Rusty and ended up on the worst end of it. I don't see any other way, being as how Rusty Wallace was in third place with 10 bonus points after having led the most laps. Dale was running 7th place, almost 2 laps down. Rusty Wallace had no reason to make any contact with Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt would have almost had to initiate the contact to try and scare Rusty away in some manner. However, due to braking technology in the last 34 years since 1989, we do not need to speculate. We are going to talk to Big Pop Richard Childress himself, and he's going to tell us what took place on the incident there in turn 3.
Richard, how bad is the car hurt overall?
Well, the whole back end's gone off of it. It don't have no rear spoilers, so we ain't going to be able to run hard. We're just going to have to try to finish right now.
Did Dale say anything to you about what may have happened up there?
Well, I just told him to lap there to back off and let Rusty go, where they could run. He'd run in behind him, and he told one of the other guys that, I guess Rusty got into it or something. He didn't, we didn't elaborate on what happened.
Richard Childress giving the report that they have told Dale Earnhardt to be very, very careful. He has no rear spoiler at all, almost no downforce on the rear of the car. He's going to have his hands full.
Yeah, that's got to be tough to control with the whole back end of the car missing.
Yeah, the spoilers have become such a very important part of the handling period.
After the interview with Richard Childress leaves us with absolutely no introspective on what happened, let's have a chat with Barry Dodson. Let's see if he can shed any light on what happened between Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt in turn 3.
Wallace right now, he's out there about 140 miles an hour, but Barry, the crew chief, talking to Rusty as we go by. Barry, first of all, what did Rusty say about the incident with him and Earnhardt up there? What did he say?
He didn't say, Jerry. I had to ask him what happened. Everything got quiet and everybody stood up. They were racing close. They went into turn 1 here and they were real close. They went in down there and I think Dale let us by and was going to pull down to follow us and might have hit us. It was nothing intentional whatsoever. We're not upset, and I don't think they are. We loaned them some parts to fix their car. And I just hate to have them because we gave the lap back to Mark. We didn't want to do that.
You're getting your lap back now as you're battling Mark Martin. Do you have the power to be able to come around and win this thing?
I hope if we get around him, we'll be okay. The key thing is take care of the tires.
Well, your driver just got around him, Barry. He's now back in the lead lap. So Barry Dodson getting...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just now got around him, so that brings a big smile to Barry Dodson's face. He's been talking to us and not paying attention to what's happening on the racetrack. And now it's all up to Rusty Wallace.
Mark Martin would go on to win his first NASCAR Winston Cup race of many, many races. Unfortunately, not ever winning a championship that Rusty Wallace would obtain this year in question, 1989. These days' events at Rockingham, I believe, lost Dale Earnhardt the championship. He would leave this event with a 109-point deficit to Rusty Wallace that he could never overcome. He would, however, peel back 97 of those points at the next race at Phoenix. Okay, so we misspoke. He didn't peel back 97 points the next race. However, he peeled back 21 and he brought Mark Martin along for the ride. So going to Atlanta, we're going to have effectively a 3-way battle for the championship, which is Rusty Wallace's to lose. But before we get there, we have to address Phoenix. What happened there? It looks like he had a pretty good day. He led 76 laps. Interesting. Let's have a look. So I'm watching this race, right? I started about halfway, and after about half hour or so, they say, and Rusty Wallace is ahead by half a lap. And then, out of nowhere...
Oh, and Rusty spins. He was hit by Stan Barrett. He's sliding against the wall in turn number 1. Unbelievable. And
Stanton Barrett runs him over, and thank God for Stanton to save face, just drives straight into Rusty in the wall. But this was insane. A lapped car stuffed your race and points leader. Absolutely stuffed him. After Rusty Wallace got destroyed by Stanton Barrett, that gave Dale Earnhardt a glimmer of hope. He would run a respectable 6th place that day. Crucially, leading 0 laps. And as aforementioned, this championship battle comes right down to it, which is going to be a 3-way battle now. So those 5 points are needed each and every race. The Atlanta Journal 500 took place on a cold November day. Dale Earnhardt would start third. Rusty Wallace, to his outside. Mark Martin would start... Hold on here, boys. So Mark Martin would start way back in 20th place, which, with what I'm about to show you, will be awkward just based on this.
And it's a real difficult decision as to how to gear these cars then, Jared, because generally speaking, the higher the RPM, the more horsepower they get, the faster the car can go, and the more jeopardy they place the engine in. Now, Jack Roush said he's got to run real hard because they've got to catch Dale Earnhardt. So they wound it up to 8,500. That's his tack right now. That's about as tight as you'd ever want to run a Bristol Cup engine. Rusty Wallace has gone a little bit more conservatively. They've geared for 8,350. Now, in the spring, they turned 8,000, blew the engine, they lost the valve, but last year when they won the race, they wound it out to 8,500. So they've taken a middle point. Earnhardt, on the other hand, has taken the more conservative of all three. He's geared the track for 8,100 RPM, the same as he used this spring, the same RPM he won the race with. So 3 different strategies, all with the same thing in mind: win the race, win the championship. We see the time.
As the event comes close to its conclusion, it would appear that 8,500 RPM for the Jack Roush engine, driven by Mark Martin, would be a bit too much, as he actually almost seems to be engulfing smoke here in the in-car camera. So, Mark Martin will not win the championship. Furthermore, Rusty Wallace needs to finish 18th or better to secure it, and he is running 3 laps down currently. As Rusty Wallace works through turn 3 and turn 4, with Dale Earnhardt not very far behind, he will take the white flag. This will effectively win him the 1989 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship, as Dale Earnhardt rumbles through to take the victory in the battle, not the victory in the war. The victory in the war was lost at North Wilkesboro and furthermore lost at Rockingham. Of course, there were other incidents and events during the season. For instance, Dale Earnhardt had a DNF in both races at Charlotte in 1989. Had he just merely gotten to the end of those, he would have been the champion. However, with the steering wheel in Dale Earnhardt's hand, he makes the choice to race for the win instead of going points racing against Ricky Rudd at North Wilkesboro in turn 1. He ends up turned around, losing 31 to 36 points. The next week at Rockingham, there's an incident in turn 3 between him and your points leader, Rusty Wallace, and Dale Earnhardt loses 70 points. Had he merely just points race at North Wilkesboro and left Ricky Rudd a bit more room in turn 1, or had he probably left Rusty Wallace a bit more room in turn 3 at Rockingham, Dale Earnhardt is an 8-time champion. However, those decisions with a steering wheel in his hand are the reasons why, in 1989 at least, he did not win what would end up being his 8th title. So here, I'm at the end of the video. When I say the end, I've already high-fived myself and said, for first attempt, it ain't bad. But I was like, man, did you do everything? Then I was like, holy crap, I didn't show the final results. So here they are. And let's do some studying of them. This is basically what everyone says they love. The old Winston Cup Bob Latford format. Let's see. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. Look at anything. Rusty Wallace won the $1 million. So that's why he's gonna win almost twice as much as anyone else. The person that looks like they ran the most amount of miles was Dale Earnhardt here in 5th place. Not bad. Well, no, sorry. Dale Earnhardt for 15 lead lap finishes, which is interesting because Dale Earnhardt had 15. It's way more than anybody else, really. than a lot of these guys, and he was fourth, but Rusty Wallace had 15 also. But Earnhardt had 19. Like, what did... How do you not win? That's crazy. But, well, look at Mark Martin here. Had one win, third place in points, 123 back. Dale Earnhardt was 12 points back. So basically, Dale Earnhardt was 3 points paying race results across the season. So if at Daytona, if he was two spots better, and then if he was 1 spot better at Dover in the spring, he is your champion. That's essentially what it came down to. Or if he led laps in 3 races where he didn't win, Dale Earnhardt is your champion. It came to that close. And you could argue that's why he was racing so hard with Ricky Rudd and with Wilkesboro, but you don't ever know how these points are going to go. But I will say that he knew that Rusty Wallace was behind him. So a good points day, you need to keep that first or second place. Still, a choke still, absolutely.